Minasan, ohayou gozaimasu. It is now 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to start the JinJapan podcast. Ooh, pachi, 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 pachi. And today's episode is about Rongo Soroban. So if you haven't been watching my previous episodes, well, you probably haven't, but it's fine. That's okay. I did a little series on Shibusawa Eiichi. Shibusawa Eiichi is basically the father of Japanese business in the early 18th century, the late 18th and early 19th century Japan. He made up like 500 companies founded, like Tokyo Gas, Japanese Rail, the first bank. Like, he was the guy you want to do business with, because he was making everything. And his book, Rongo Soroban, I just read, and I think it's worth just talking about this because it can help a lot of people out. Because if you don't know what Rongo is a Chinese style of, well, Rongo is the Japanese version of it, Japanese writing, but it comes from Chinese Confucianism, so Chinese philosophy, and this was the base sort of philosophy of the samurai code, the thing what brought up the Japanese and sort of the warring states in the Edo period. This is what they believed. These are the core principles, what they were. And that with Soroban, if you don't know what a Soroban is, that's like the Japanese, the calculator. You've probably seen a picture of one of these before. It's a long, like, stick and it has loads of bees and you flick them up and down. And with that you can count. And that's a Soroban. So this book is about the relationship between Rongo and Soroban, but actually the relationship between like your personality, your morals, and more economics. And that, getting that balance right, is what key. I'm going to talk about that in today's episode of JinJapan. Oh, 楽しみ! We'll start off with a little summary of who was Shibusawa Eiichi. So Shibusawa Eiichi was born in 1840 in sort of modern-day Satsuma Prefecture, what's just above Tokyo, and he basically was in sort of a farming family, and they farmed. Forgot it was like cotton, and their farming was they had to trade a lot, their family, that the trades get things from other farms, so he was brought up with sort of this entrepreneurial mindset of selling and buying stuff, and this is, well, made him extremely highly educated, even though he was from a peasant sort of background. As a farmer, like a merchant in Japan, like at the time, the Edo period is really class-based. You're a samurai, you're not. You're a farmer or you're not. You're a merchant or you're not. You can't move around. People would move around and get a bit like, ugh, like they're not really that good. But he got very highly influenced by Confucianism because he kind of became a samurai in a way. He entered sort of samurai school, started doing Bushido, swordplay, and he got bopped up in Son no Joi. So if you don't know about the late Japanese period of the Edo period, some guy called Perry turned up in a boat and was like, open the country. And this kind of didn't go too great for the Japanese government, because it kind of got lots of bad. So praise, and people started rebelling. And this was the Son no Joi movement, and they pretty much wanted to kick out the shogun, kill all the foreigners, and restore power to the emperor. So he became a terrorist. Pretty much, he wanted to burn down Yokohama and kill everyone for a little bit. Luckily, he didn't do that. What he did instead was he kind of went to Kyoto, and he became a kashin, or sort of a servant, a follower, a worker for a lord of the Tokugawa, a family member, Ichihashi. Then it turns out this guy, Ichihashi Yoshinobu, this Yoshinobu guy just becomes shogun, and he's like, oh, I just kind of worked to try and destroy the shogun, now I'm working for the shogun. So it's kind of a bit funny. But with that, he kind of comes front of the shogun. He kind of likes him. It's like, this guy, you can change it from within. This is the guy we need. And Yoshinobu was extremely smart. And one thing he was wanted to do is, well, make Japan look good to foreigners. Like, foreigners don't really understand Japan, really, because they've been closed for 200 years. So he participated in the Paris World Fair. And this is where Shibusawa Eiichi went to Paris and was like, oh, Europe is amazing! It's amazing! Trains! Stock companies! What else is like? Coffee! Oatmeal! So, he got blown away by European culture. And I did a whole episode on this, you should watch it, because the whole events in Paris in detail were really interesting. And recently is NHK, the NHK sort of BBC in Japan, did a drama series on him, and they covered this, and it was just really good to watch. So if Nihongo de wakaru bae wa zehi mite kudasai. But if you don't understand Japanese, it's all in Japanese, you not sub, so it's okay. Just read Rongo Soroban. So what he did when he came back was kind of awkward, because the Shogun kind of was over. So the guy you were lord for is kind of now in exile, and you're like, what do I do? So it's like, I'm gonna start a business! I'm gonna start a stock company! That's what he did. And he started in current day Shizuoka Prefecture. So you got Shizuoka, what's like what, Fujisan. And he started basically a stock company, trading, merchants, bringing the samurai and merchants together. Now we were like bit rivals, but now we're together. Like the Rongo, the Soroban. Like the samurai have this Rongo, the moral code. The merchants have the sort of economics, and he brought them together and he made a company. And this got the eyes of the new Japanese government, and they were like, we need this guy, we need him. So they brought him and put him in the government. And he worked there for quite a while, but he kind of got fed up with it because, well, the government kind of got too focused on economics. As we said, the previous company was Rongo and Soroban, so they had the morals in the background. But the Japanese government, when they started, they were just mostly focused on making money. They were mostly focused on like army. So they kind of educated people more Western style, focused on that too much, and they lost the Rongo. They lost the morality. And then they became more on Soroban, more on the economics, and that kind of led to, well, people trying to make money out of people, making money off the people, and it made more revolts and more riots and stuff, and well, there was a load of assassinations in this period and then wars, so well. So this book is basically about that sort of relationship, like why you need Rongo, why you need this moral background if you want to have actually a good life. And it's not about just making money, because he made a lot of money, right? He was one of the biggest businessmen in Japan. Like if you, the time you want to do business in Japan, you go to Shibusawa, you go to Shibusawa. Like, he's the guy you go to. Like, they don't think about the president, they go to Shibusawa. They're like, oh, the Prime Minister of Japan? Like, Shibusawa? Like, what do you think of this? Like, he's more important. Like, that's how big he was. So now, we're going to talk a bit about Rongo, and a bit more about the principles of stuff I learned from this book. So, enjoy. So, Rongo was the teachings of Confucius, and he was sort of before Christ, so AD about 500 BC to about 551 BC to 479 BC. So he was, well, old. It's like a sort of Aristotle of Chinese philosophy, and things he teaches is very like Aristotle in a way, that his teachings was written down by his disciples, like Aristotle's written down by Plato. So I think his disciples read what he basically said. And one of the four main principles of his teaching, the Gojo, Jin, sort of benevolence, which is more like just worrying about people. Gi, duty, like got a duty to like serve your country, serve your family, do good things. There, like morality. No, there is morality like that. There, like respect your elders, your family, your environment, the people who give you food and stuff like that. Yeah, wisdom and knowledge, like pursue that. And Shin, believe in your friends and family, believe in yourself, having that is a core principle you need. And this was taken in a lot by the samurai, especially in the Edo period, because we had a very interesting shogunate, Tokugawa Ieyasu, and he loved Rongo. He loved it. He loved it so much that he made it the core principles to, teach all the samurai in the land of Japan. Because the samurai, he wanted to turn them from vicious warriors into, well-kept bodyguards. So we needed a sort of philosophy to keep them in check. To get them from vicious warriors who just murder people in the warring states to be productive citizens and not murder each other anymore. We're not doing that anymore. We're peace now. Stop killing each other. So that's what he wanted. So it's a very philosophy actually used to control the people. And fuse this with Buddhism, and that was a core principle. What he did in the sort of Edo period. So it has some flaws. And one of the flaws is a class-dominant system. That is one of them. And another one I didn't realize when I was reading it was why you should study things. And this is kind of rubbed off, I think, still in Japanese culture. You study things for a goal. You want to study this. You can study it for yourself is really good, but you study this to get somewhere, right? You study this point. You study for this test to get to test them. You study for the test to get on the company, sort of thing. And this has kind of led to Japanese sort of exam culture, I think. They take a lot of tests to get into university, and people take tests to get into a job. But some good things have come out of this. And that is what I did notice is the good difference between Christianity, the teaching of the sort of time of Europe, and the Rongo. And that is how you think about sort of giving. As in Christianity, you would say the things you want to give to others. That's a really good sort of praise. You give something you want to other that feels really good. It's charity. But in Japan, charity is a bit awkward. You try and do that in Japan, people would criticize you. You're doing that for your own needs, your own personal gain. That was a lot when we had sort of earthquakes in Japan, Daishinsai back in 2011. Remember that big earthquake, that disaster? A lot of celebrities were giving donations, and they didn't really go too well for them. Publicly, they got criticism. This doesn't have that thing. Instead, Japan has another sort of mindset. That is, don't do the things you don't want to do. You don't want to other people. This is sort of meiwaku. Don't try and bother other people. You need to keep to yourself. Do the things because you don't like things. Don't do that to other people because you obviously know you don't like them. They probably will not like them too. That sort of mindset is fundamental in Japan right now. I think the building grounds of the Japanese society, and that still lingers today. And these sort of, I said, the core principles of the Bushido, those 5 pillars, those come in sort of building out the Japanese style, or listening to the samurai style of education, what rubbed off in the early sort of Meiji period when Japan was revolutionizing. So these were economics as well. I think the new Western culture coming in, business, mixing those two. You don't pursue sort of making lots of money just for yourself. Money for money. You pursue it to making it for a reason, getting it for a goal, helping your family, helping your country, helping your people. Coming off like that. You do it more in a good sort of fashion, not making just a lot of money, but making things. Shibusawa, he made lots of businesses, not just for himself, just to get economics going, get people working, get stuff going on. That should be the reason you should be making money for, is to get stuff moving, get people doing things. Not just getting the numbers in the bank and then buying a Ferrari. You see that a lot in Japan now. You buy cars and you just put them in car parks. You can't put them anywhere. You don't have you don't have a parking space in your car, but you have a Ferrari. It's money and turn it back, But Okanimachi, they're weird. And another important thing about this is what should you study, and that's the importance of history. One key principle is this is Confucianism. This is 2,000 years ago. People have not changed. History changes, society changes, but the fundamental of how people think, our brains, have not changed. That's the importance of studying history, is how humans react, what happens in certain events. Learning that from history is extremely important, because even though the same thing won't happen again, similar things happen. Having a reference, having something to go back on, like what did people do when this happened? Like the Spanish flu, what did they do when COVID happened? Like, having that reference would have helped out a lot. Maybe in Europe a bit more if they remembered that. But people forget everything. And people repeat things. And they repeat history because they don't learn from history. And that is how we get to the unbalance as well. People going more over money because they can use people because they don't study and they're dumb. But so that's the end of today's episode. No, we're going to end there. We're going to a little bit more on anime, because there's anime in Paris in sort of centuries, the time when Shibusawa Eiichi got influenced by Western culture. We'll talk about that in the next part of JinJapan. Woo, Tashimi! So welcome back. Let's end a little bit on Rongo Soroban. We talked a little bit about Shibusawa Eiichi and the book Rongo Soroban, a bit about Chinese Confucius, and now we're talking about anime. What anime? Banidasu note. Banidasu Kisho! So if you don't know what this anime is, it was previously aired last year in sort of spring or summer? And now it's starting the second season. And what it's about vampires in Paris, but not just Paris, like 18th century Paris. So all the vampire tales, like Joan of Arc, stuff like that comes together, and it's really, it's like a Chunibro, like a childish anime. If you know what Chunibro is, like sort of disease, like high school kids get, and they just want to do like an anime character, they want to do fantasy stuff. And if you like these sort of animes, this is the one for you. And it's just started its second season, so it's a good time to watch it. But if you like the sort of old-style Paris, the old-style clothes, the sort of things, it's got a steampunk theme as well. If you like that, it's a good thing to watch. And being Shibusawa Eiichi, he was influenced by Paris this sort of time. I think if you want to see a bit of Paris, not the Paris today, the Paris when it was Paris, this is an anime to watch. And it's quite fun. It's quite cool. It's like a vampire bromance. And they go and like fight the bad guys. And they're like, vampires and humans should be friends. But they become friends. And it's like, it's good. So you should watch that. And it's a little bit about people relationships. And as well, you should read Rongo to Soroban. It's definitely a worthwhile read. It's about 200 pages. I think there definitely should be an English version. If not, 日本語からないの人はぜひ日本語で読んでください. But I will find some descriptions and put them down below for you to buy them in English and in Japanese, so you can learn the teachings of Shibusawa Eiichi, and it should make your life much, much, much better. And now I'm gonna go to run Tokyo Tower. Yes, sir! はい、皆さん最後まで聞いてくれてありがとうございました。じゃあね。これアッパレンジにね、OBS だから。